Welcome. This is the Health and Wellness Coach Journal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Singh, the founder and CEO of the Center for Health and Wellness Coaches. This is a podcast for coaches to explore topics related to health, wellness, and coaching, sharing knowledge and sharing light. Gina Martin works with senior leaders and founders who are ready to elevate their strategic influence, strengthen their executive presence, and lead with greater decision authority. Her clients often come to her at pivotal moments when they are scaling, navigating high-stakes transitions, or realizing the leadership that got them here will not get them to where they want to go next. Through her coaching and consulting, Gina helps leaders move from reactive patterns to deliberate, high-impact leadership with more clarity, confidence, and coherence when the stakes are highest. Before founding Gina Martin Coaching and Consulting, she spent more than 25 years leading inside high-pressure organizations, including managing teams of up to 600 people at Victoria's Secret, Guess, and Gap. She knows leadership from the inside and brings that real-world experience to every client engagement. Gina's work is also shaped by her own story of reinvention. As a breast cancer survivor, she has a deeply personal understanding of resilience, identity, and what it takes to lead through profound change. That experience also inspired her to found Own Your Next, a nonprofit supporting high-achieving women as they rebuild confidence, identity, and career after cancer. Today, Gina partners with CEOs, C-suite leaders, and leadership teams navigating growth, transition, and the defining moments that shape their legacy. Her work has been recognized with the Gold Stevie Award for Mentor and Coach of the Year, and she is a member of the Forbes Coaches Council with advanced certifications in Hogan and DiSC. Welcome, Gina. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction, Jess. I'm so happy to be spending time with you today.
Just as in coaching, where it seems like the wonderful words come from us, they come from the people we coach. So thank you for the wonderful introduction and the work you've done. I'm so excited to learn from you and would love to begin by asking you if you could share your story of what led you to where you are now.
Oh, wow. We could be here for hours, but I'll try to keep it concise. I've always been someone who had to learn to rise through transition. And I came to this country at the age of 18. I had $300 in my pocket. I had a toddler in my arms and didn't even know how to speak English. I became a single mom really young. And from a very young age, I started this whole concept of self-leadership because I had to lead myself through a lot of difficult times in my life. Now, so much of my life has been about becoming the woman I needed to be even before I had the proof I could become that woman, right? And I had the opportunity to build an incredible life and career, spent, as you mentioned, over 20 years working in retail organizations where I built incredible success and got the opportunity to manage large teams and creating amazing experiences for our clients. And unfortunately, cancer then later on in my life became probably one of the most defining transitions in my life. I was 48 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that experience changed me. It didn't just change my body. It challenged my identity. It challenged my sense of safety, my vision for the future, and even what I understood to be healing. And today, much of my work is about helping people on their next chapter, whether they're leaders that are stepping into bigger roles or women who are rebuilding their lives after cancer. My story, my work, and my mission are deeply connected. And I am so grateful that I get to do what I love most every day.
To have that joy and gratitude after everything that you've been through, which is so inspiring. Given what you've shared at the time when you found that you were diagnosed, what was that like for you at that time?
When I think about my diagnosis, and maybe I'll take you back a little bit to finding out I had cancer. So we had all been secluded from COVID, right? We were all home. And even though we were under lockdown, I still was doing all my checkups. And I went for a mammogram. I remember it was like May 2020. I went for a mammogram. Everything was fine. But throughout the summer, I had noticed something in my body that looked different. I was great. I was healthy. I was boxing 3 times a week. I was doing really well health wise, didn't have any complaints, but I started to notice a slight shift in one of my nipples. So I went to my doctor over the summer, went to my gynecologist, and I said, I'm noticing something here. And she was like, no, no problem. It's probably your monthly time. Just keep an eye on it. Everything is fine. I was like, okay. And then December came and still had the concerns. I can see the difference. And I went to another doctor and they said, you know what, we're going to send you to do another mammogram and sonogram. And here's the name of a breast surgeon, just in case you want to go see them. And I was like, okay. So December 26th, I'm back with a mammogram and a sonogram. And it says, I'm clear. I don't have cancer. But I still go see the breast surgeon in January because I had this intuition that something was happening. I can see the change in my body, right? In my nipple. And I hope that's okay to say on air, right? I'm sure it is. We're talking about health anyway. But long story short, unfortunately, when I saw the surgeon, she says, what I see, it is a sign of breast cancer. So let's take you to the next level. So now I go for an MRI, and it's not until we get into the lymph nodes that she says you have breast cancer. So it was, I'm going to say, probably the darkest day of my life when she picked up the phone and called me and said, you have breast cancer. And it wasn't just that moment. It was what came after that continued to be a big challenge, right? It's the journey, is the different decisions that you have to make when you're facing a life-threatening disease. And then it's the rebuild after, right? So I think it's not just the diagnosis. I think it's everything that happens after that becomes even more challenging. It was a very difficult thing to experience. And I'm very grateful for always following my intuition, because that was, by the time I was diagnosed, I had stage 3 cancer. And they weren't finding it, right? Because like I said, I had 2 mammograms that were negative. So I'm very grateful that I was able to advocate for myself, continue to follow my intuition, continue to challenge the doctors until I finally found someone that heard me.
Wow. And how did your healing journey unfold after that?
Well, because of the severity of where I was, I had to go through a few different steps in the journey, right? So the first thing was surgery. So I went immediately into surgery. So I had a double mastectomy. I had 31 lymph nodes removed. 30 of them had cancer. So that was a big surgery. I was supposed to be in there for 3 hours, ended up being 7.5 hours surgery. And then after that, I had to have chemo. So I went through another like 4 months of chemotherapy. In between that, doing a lot of physical therapy to regain mobility, because once you've had the amount of, I think, damage to your body in between the mastectomy, between the lymph nodes removed, I had to constantly be in physical therapy. And then I went through 5 weeks of radiation. And then after that was my reconstruction. So it's a lot, because you're doing like one treatment probably every 3 to 4 months. And in between, you're doing physical therapy. You're doing things to regain your strength. So I think the whole healing journey was probably about 14 months.
And how did you find yourself navigating this through what was going on in your career at that time?
Yeah. I had been in a moment where I started building my coaching business on the side of my full-time job. And through COVID, I was furloughed of my job, and I was building my coaching business even further. So by the time I was diagnosed, I was just about to go full-time coaching and letting go of my full-time job. And unfortunately, I had to stop. right? So I had to stop my business. I stayed engaged. I had one or two clients throughout the journey that had been working with me. But for the most part, I had to stop working. There was a lot of intensity in my treatment plan. And I think I realized this early on in the journey. You have to take care of your mindset in order for you to face something like this. Cancer didn't impact just my body, my healing, my health. It impacted my finances. It impacted my career. It impacted my relationships, right? So I had to very learn early in the journey, realize I had to remove as many stressors as possible in order to heal, right? And I was blessed that I had my daughters. One of my daughters moved back in with me, helped support me. I had a great support system at home. I had a great support system with my doctors. And that allowed me to really take the time through the healing. If you think about radiation, I was going to radiation 5 times a week for 5 weeks. And I had double radiation because of the type of cancer. And every time I would sit on that table, my back was destroyed, right? So it was just so much to go through that for me, what was important was how do I set myself up in a way that I could just focus on my healing?
What's coming out so much, even in just what you shared, Samar, is this faith in yourself, in your intuition, and the fact that you gave yourself the space. It's not easy to recognize you need that time for yourself. And I know you see this, and I'd love to know what your experience is because I know you specialize with this, but especially people who are high performers, executive leadership development, they get terminal illnesses, life threatening illnesses, and they work through it.
And I do, and believe it or not, I have clients that are working and getting treatment for cancer. Because at the end of the day, we have to realize that, and I think I've realized early on in my journey, is everyone's cancer journey is unique. And each of our abilities to handle grief, to handle illness, to handle a journey like this is going to be different, right? And let me tell you, I struggle because I was a high achiever. I was one of those people that I was always go doing. And I would tell you, my doctors couldn't figure out why I got sick because that's how cancer is, right? That's what they call it, the silent killer. It wasn't in my genes. I was pretty healthy. I wasn't abusing a lot of different things and I was very active too. But I know that I had high stressful jobs my entire life, right? And that I was always go, go, go. So I will tell you that for me, I know stress was probably one of the reasons why I was sick, but it was not easy to force myself to slow down. And there's two things. First, you have to have the courage to make some really tough choices. I had to decide to file for bankruptcy. I had no other choice. Right? I was left with almost no income. So there are choices that I had to make in order to allow myself to go through the journey. So this is by no all means an easy thing to decide to do. Other people will say, no, I have to keep working so that I could take care of my finances, right? Not everybody's going to have that same decision matrix or that same way of making a huge decision. But at the end of the day, you have to have the courage to make the best decision for you. And maybe that best decision is to stay at work. Maybe that best decision is to quit, right? So for me, I think I realized I needed to allow myself to heal. I was in a very dark place because I understood that my diagnosis was very serious. And the minute I understood that it was a serious diagnosis, I said it's going to take some serious effort for me to survive this. And I think the other piece to that is becoming comfortable with just being. And to me, I was always a high achiever syndrome. Every test, every personality test I've taken, and I still am, right? But I think the biggest shift for me was allowing myself to just be. And that was so hard. I remember being frustrated. You know, you go through chemo, and unfortunately, that's not a one-day thing. Yes, you come out of chemo and maybe you're high because they give you steroids, they give you allergy medicine, so you don't feel a thing. And then the next day you crash. So for the next 2 days, I have nausea that I can't even function. And I was crying, I was frustrated, but I had to teach myself to be self compassionate, to allow my body to heal. And I knew that by the fourth, fifth day, I will be okay and I'll have a few days to feel better and to do other things. So there was a lot of practicing self compassion in this process. And that's not easy for us high achievers. It is not. Trust me, it was a very hard thing to do. Thank goodness I have become a coach before going through this, because coaching teaches you this importance around being present and being in the moment. And I think that was the other thing that grounded me through this process, is understanding that everything I had was the moment that I was experiencing. And being present and not worried about the future or worry about the past is what helped me stay grounded in the healing journey.
There's so much strength in your voice and just this grounding. Even with talking to you, I feel your conviction, and the will to live is a huge part of this. As you reflect on the journey and all the challenges that you went through, what were the major beliefs, or how'd you find your motivation to go through it? And not only just go through it, you went through it and you kept working on yourself, doing the inner work throughout all of this.
Now that you say that, I never thought of it that way, but you're right. I was doing inner work. Oh my goodness, I was doing a lot of inner work, because I think there's got to be a part of you, whatever you believe in, right? You have to be, I would say, very close to your spirituality when you're going through this, whether you believe in God and the spirits and the universe and whatever it is. And I think that for me, it was so much, in a way, self-coaching and so much of like inspiring myself and grounding myself in the spirituality. And I think this started very early. I realized at the very beginning that when I was hearing a lot of information and negative information, that it was impacting me, right? And one of the things that happened that I will consider probably the second worst day in my life was the day I decided to Google my diagnosis. And I don't recommend that anyone does this, but I remember sitting in a parking lot coming out of the place that had given me the results of my biopsy, and I decided to Google it, and I thought I was going to die. And I remember that moment, I just felt like my whole entire universe collapsed. And I was like, wow, this is it, right? It was like so clear, and it was so dark. And in that moment, I also made a decision, and I said, not because it was true for others, it has to be true for me. And that mantra stayed with me throughout my entire journey. Every time I will get a chemo drug and they will give me all the side effects, I will listen to what they were telling me. I will fold my paper and I will say, okay, not because it happens to others, it has to happen to me. And that's what grounded me in the process. And I think that motivation, like you said, to continue to live, I've always been in love with life. For me, love is my number one value. And I think that love for life was always there, that love for my family. I started my family so young. I've always had another life responsible for me in my entire life. And so at first for me, it was really like staying motivated for my family, for my daughters that I know needed me. But over time, it became much more than survival. It became this mission to know that I could continue to hone in on the strengths that always helped me overcome so many challenges in my life. And I wanted to be at a place where I could give myself permission to build a beautiful life after cancer and be able to share my story and to inspire others that if I survive, others could survive too.
Thank you so much for sharing that with others and everything that you're talking about so candidly. It's so heartwarming. And I know for people listening to this, especially health and well-being coaches, any niche, right? Because where does health not show up in life?
Yeah. Well, and I always say that as coaches, we are all who we are wherever we are. So even if you're a career coach, if you're an executive coach, whatever type of coach you are, at the end of the day, you're coaching the person. And they bring all of them to the sessions. And I think it's important to recognize that, because a lot of times I have clients that come and they might come with a challenge, or they're feeling rejected, or they're feeling, but at the end of the day, there's something deeper within them, right? That's causing that reaction. So I think that is the beauty. It's like at the end of the day, we're all a whole person. And I think we have to coach the whole person.
Absolutely. And you had shared that point when that happened to you. You were just about to transition and build your own business. After you had gone through treatment and had gone through the bulk of this, what did it look like for you to rebuild now from a professional standpoint?
That was, I would say, part 3 of the challenge here. One thing that I remember when I got to the end of radiation and then I had my reconstruction surgery, which was very intense too. When I finally got to a place where like, okay, I finished all my main treatment, I am now ready to like go back and build. It was hard. I remember being there and thinking, okay, I'm ready to go back in, but people are expecting me to just jump back in and everything's okay and you're cured and go back to normal. It was funny because I felt two things. One, I felt an external pressure to just bounce back. You're done, right? This is over and you go back to life and you go back to whatever it was. And I was like, but life is not the same. And on the other hand, I had an internal pressure that I kept on putting on myself, that I kept on saying, you almost die. You have to turn your life around 180. So it was almost like I had this crazy expectation of myself that I somehow needed to be the healthiest person in the world. I had to have the best nutrition. I had to have the best work. Like I had these crazy expectations that were driving me crazy. So it was tough. The other thing that I realized is that the high achieving tendencies that I had in the past were no longer serving me, right? I was a different person. So it was a very challenging journey for me. And it took a lot more of inner work, right? But I think what happens is you come out of this journey and you are going to the doctor 3 to 4 times a month. You got all these people supporting you. Maybe you have a therapist. Maybe you have a social worker. You got doctors. All of a sudden you finish, you have nobody. Right? So for me, it was like, okay, now what? So I think I had to do so much work around my values because my values were different. What was important for me was different. I had to reshape my identity. And I also had to rebuild my confidence because now I had spent over 14, 15 months not really working, right? And now it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to go sell my services? How am I going to go get clients? Like, what do I have to do? So I had to do a lot of work to rebuild that confidence. And I'll tell you later about on your next, but the biggest things is like, you almost have to redefine who you are, your identity. Then you have to reclaim it, right? And say, okay, I'm ready. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. This is what I want to do in my life. And then you got to be able to reinvent yourself to keep on going forward. So it was a very challenging phase, but it was beautiful because I think in a way it allowed me to consciously build the next phase of my life.
And what did that conscious building? So you did a lot of in work, a lot of discovery. How did it look different, this phase, compared to when you were going to start that coaching business before all that happened? What shifted now?
Yeah. What shifted? Well, I think as a person, right? I changed a lot in how I showed up a lot more present, showed up with a different definition of what life is all about, right? And what it really means to be happy, to enjoy life, to be present, to appreciate everything we have, right? So I think that my appreciation for life changed, that when I started rebuilding the business, it was more doing it so from a place of how do I help others see in themselves what they don't see for themselves, right? So I think for me, my mission as a coach changed a little bit. I've always been one that wanted clients to succeed and thrive and achieve the goals. And I think it became more about helping my clients be who they want to be and rebuild what they want to rebuild, right? So I think that the shift happened a lot in my focus, on my coaching focus, but also how I was showing up as a coach. And I think also going back to self compassion, being much more conscious of how much pressure I was putting on myself and how I was, it's not work life balance because it's more like work life integration. But I think it was more around building the business from a place of flow as opposed to a place of push. And I think that is the difference. And I tell my clients and I tell everybody that I work with, I am blessed every single day. I get to do work that I enjoy. I get to do meaningful work that fulfills me, right? And that's just so beautiful when you can have that type of alignment. So yeah, I think a lot changed as I feel like I'm much more in the flow than I was before.
That abundance is beautiful because then we give from a full cup rather than an empty cup. For coaches listening to this, there's so many places to go. This is so inspiring because when you think about even how to build your business when you first get started, we get our certificates, we get our education, and they're wonderful. But that real world application, how do you bridge those gaps, and let alone to rebuild after something like this? So, for any
Yeah.
coach who might be struggling to find their way, everything going on in our world, what words of wisdom would you have for them, or words of love and acceptance?
Yeah. That's such a beautiful question, Jess. It's funny because I do have clients at times that are coaches building a business. And I think the biggest thing is that when we get into coaching, our tendency is to think that we're starting from zero. Well, I'm a new coach. I can't really charge that much, right? Or I'm a new coach. Who's going to hire me? We see that. Or I came into coaching to do good work, like well being, like health. I can't charge, right? I can't ask for my price. So I think that in a way, we have to realize two things. One is most people get into coaching and they already bring a wealth of experience. And I'm not talking professional experience. I'm talking about your upbringing, your life, your challenges, your struggle. I'm a better coach because I went through cancer, right? I'm a better coach because I've been through some crazy stuff in my life. I overcame. So resilience is a muscle that I bring that I can inspire my clients to bring, right? So I think we forget that we bring so much more to the table. You go to coaching school for the process of coaching. But your knowledge, your expertise is all of you, is everything you bring to the table. And if I can inspire coaches that are early in their journey to realize you're not starting from zero, you just learn the process, but you've been coaching your whole life. You get into this business because you want to change the world. And that's exactly what you've been doing all along, right? You've been doing good work and you're going to continue to do better work. So you have to understand your worth. You have to understand what you bring to the table. And you have to understand that every single piece of experience, challenge, life, lived experiences, they're all going to just amount even higher towards your credibility with your clients. And I think that's one. And the second thing is we always have to realize that there is coaching and there is the business of coaching. And I think a lot of schools, unfortunately, don't teach you the business of coaching, right? And at the end of the day, being a coach, whether you're going to coach internally or you're going to coach or you're going to build your own business, at the end of the day, you have to be able to promote yourself and sell your business. And in order for that to be sustainable and become a full time profession, you have to learn to be an entrepreneur, right? And I think the last thing is I hear a lot of coaches sometimes say, well, I don't like social media. I don't like promoting myself. I don't like doing marketing, right? And I'm sure you hear that because I see you laughing. At the end of the day, you have got to market your business, right? We all have a digital footprint in this world. We all have a digital presence. Somebody can Google you and they're going to find out who you are, right? What you're doing is you're controlling what people see, you're controlling your narrative, and you're owning your voice. When I hear coaches say, well, I don't like being in social media, I'm like, but how are your clients going to hear your voice? How are they going to know what you're about? And if you're hiding, how is that teaching your clients to come out of a hiding? Right? So I think the biggest, I would say, three pieces of wisdom that I could give, but I could talk about hours for this because I have worked a lot with clients launching businesses and with people that are positioning themselves with what's next, and the power of building a personal brand and thought leadership in whichever way that is huge. It's just like what you're doing here, Jess, right? Through your podcast. I think it's about finding what we love doing. And you love interviewing people, you love sharing these beautiful stories, then go for that, right? Not everybody enjoys the same, but I think it's so important to find your thing and let the world hear your voice.
What you said was so beautiful about walking that talk. And also, if you go into coaching to help people, if they can't find you and don't know you exist, how can you help them? And so, once you reframe and have that relationship with social media, it changes.
Yep,
Yeah.
it does.
And so, how does it look like? I know you have this beautiful nonprofit that you created, which you like to share about Own Your Next.
Oh, yeah, totally, totally. As we were talking about my cancer journey, one of the things that I was always passionate about was how do I help women that are going through something like this? And I remember showing up totally bald. I lost all my hair and going to my chemo with my little lunch bag. And like everybody was like, how do you always come in and you're so positive and you're smiling and, so grateful. And I remember I was like, wow, how do I help women? So that was always a mission. And I remember my social worker, I told her, I'm a coach, I want to help women going through cancer. And she's like, you got to heal yourself first, and then you can help others. And I was like, okay, that's a good point. So that was always at top of mind. And I had the opportunity to get accepted into NYU for a master's degree. It was a really proud moment for me. And I embarked into this incredible program, executive coaching and organizational consulting in NYU. When I started my first week, that I was like, where everybody was introducing themselves, I was like, I'm going to form a nonprofit. We're going to help women who are breast cancer survivors. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but that's what I'm going to do. And I remember that was just 18 months ago. And, through conversations with my teachers, my peers, it just became like started forming. And about 8 months ago, I had some beautiful colleagues from NYU, and we started brainstorming and building On Your Next. So we launched in the month of March. On Your Next is a nonprofit organization that helps women reclaim life after breast cancer. And how we do that is we empower women through an 8-week coaching program that is completely free. We have a beautiful group of coaches that are coming in to support and volunteer with us and support these women. And we're looking to launch our first cohort at the end of June in 2026. So we are in the process of recruiting coaches to come and do some volunteer work with us, but also recruiting clients. And for us, we're looking for women that have finished their main treatment and that are ready to go into that phase of rebuilding. Our focus is really about helping them redesign what the next step looks like. Maybe their values, their identity, right? Understanding what they really want and get the clarity around what they want. And then also reclaiming their voice, reclaiming their confidence, and then helping them rebuild, right? So that's the whole idea, is reimagining what's possible, really honing in on what they want to go, how they want to live their life, whether it is their career or whether they just want to go be themselves, right? But do it from a place of intention and confidence of reclaiming what's next. That's our nonprofit. So we're really excited. And I'll share some links with you to share with the audience as well. All I hope is that you can continue to spread the word. On Your Next is just an incredible mission that I hope to bring global one day. We are a remote organization, and the idea is that clients get not only one-on-one coaching, they'll get group coaching, and they'll also get to build a community.
Such a beautiful vision. For those listening, the links will be in the show notes. So to reach out to Gina Martin if you're a coach who wants to volunteer, or someone who can benefit. So we'll definitely help share.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jess.
It's also incredible because you had talked about how, and this is so true, a big part of being a coach, even if you work as an internal coach, you're still an entrepreneur. You still set up a business. You have to have a contract with them and know how to get those engagements, which the big part of it that is a less common conversation is the knowledge needed to form a nonprofit. There's so many coaches who go into this to want to help special groups of people and populations that need it so much. And so learning how to form a nonprofit, everything involved with that, it's really a lot of like your passion for this is translated in everything that you've had to learn to do yourself.
Yeah, you're right. And it's an undertaking. I'm learning so much, even though I came with knowledge. You learned a lot. But I think one thing that I've learned that when you have vision and you can share that vision clearly, people will follow and will help you. And when you're doing things from a place of so much love, you're going to attract a ton of great people your way. And I think that's huge. I feel like what has helped me, yes, I have over 20 years of leadership where I ran retail stores, I ran large teams, I know operations, I know sales, I know what it takes. I also been in quite a few nonprofit boards. So that has helped me a lot, having that prior knowledge. I was president-elect of the New York City chapter of the ICF. I was a volunteer there for over 3.5 years. I love the ICF. All of those things have helped in the process. But trust me, as I am building this thing, there's been a lot of learning. The other day, I almost couldn't open a bank account because I didn't file a certain thing correctly, right? So there's always going to be learning, but it's been so much joy. And I think if you share the vision, if you have a big enough vision that people are going to follow it, and then if you're willing to learn every step of the way, right? Because here's the deal, AI is such an incredible tool, and you can learn so much and do so much that if you learn to utilize it in a way that is a tool that is educating you, that is helping you get there, it's going to help you fast track the process while not losing your humanity, your human voice, and those things that make you uniquely human. So anyway, excited to share.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. What is your takeaway for coaches listening to this?
I would love for people to really look within themselves to see how much power they have, internal power. I think you're so much more than just a coaching certification. And trust me, I like them. You see all the ones, they're all coaching certifications, the high achiever. So you're so much more than a certification, right? You have so much to bring to the table. And I know you're in coaching because you want to do good. You want to do good work. You want to show up. But it all starts with your own inner work. You have to believe in you. You have to believe in your power. You have to be your own cheerleader every day. And when you do that, when you ground yourself in your beautiful gifts, then anything is possible.
Thank you so much. Such an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your life.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, Jess. It's such an honor. I can't wait to see you in person and give you a big hug.
Oh, same here. I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you and value your feedback. So please subscribe and write a constructive review. If you'd like to be informed of new episodes and offerings and resources for coaches, sign up for our email list at www.centerforhealthandwellnesscoaches.com. Sending you warmth and light.